General Amara Akinquo was watching her grandson draw a picture of a spaceship. When the sky turned orange, she had taken the morning off from her duties at United Defense Command. Such moments were rare for a woman of her position, and she treasured every second with little Kofi. The boy was 7 years old, bright-eyed and full of questions about the stars. He wanted to be an astronaut. Someday, he wanted to meet the aliens that humanity had discovered just 15 years ago. The explosion came without warning. Amara grabbed Kofi and threw herself over his body as the windows of the school shattered inward. Glass rained down around them. Children screamed. Teachers shouted for everyone to get under their desks. Through the broken window, Amara saw something that would stay with her for the rest of her life. The city hospital where her daughter had given birth to Kofi 7 years ago was simply gone. In its place was a column of fire rising into the clouds, and above the clouds dark shapes moved, like sharks circling wounded prey. Alien warships, dozens of them. Grandmother, Kofi whispered, his small body shaking against hers. What is happening? Amara did not answer. She could not answer. She was watching the sky fill with death. The attack on Earth had begun. 3,000 light-years away, Emperor Zalrath, the Conqueror, watched the assault on his command display with satisfaction. The HFY Empire had conquered 217 worlds across the galaxy. Earth would be 218. The humans had been a curiosity. When first contact occurred, they were soft, weak, and short-lived. They lacked the armored scales of the Kithvar, the psychic abilities of the Melodari, or the hive intelligence of the Thrill. By all measures, they were an inferior species occupying a strategically valuable star system. Wrath had given them 15 years to prove their worth. They had failed. Status report. The Emperor demanded. Admiral Vreeth bowed his massive reptilian head. 3 major population centers have been eliminated. Divine Conqueror, their orbital defenses were laughable. Their military response has been confused and ineffective. I estimate complete planetary submission within 6 hours. Solreth allowed himself a rare smile, revealing rows of serrated teeth. Excellent. Begin the ground invasion. I want their leaders in chains by tomorrow. The Emperor turned to address his court. Nobles and generals filled the throne room, their scales gleaming under the blood-red lights. Let this be a lesson to all who would resist the Empire. The humans thought themselves special. They thought their little planet mattered. Today they learned the truth. The court erupted in hissing laughter. Back on Earth, Amara Akinquo moved through chaos. She had commandeered a military transport within minutes of the attack. Her identification code still worked despite her morning off. As the vehicle raced toward United Defense Command, she watched through the windows as the world she knew came apart. Cities burned. Aircraft fell from the sky. Emergency broadcasts screamed warnings that no one could follow. The HFY warships moved with terrible efficiency, targeting military bases, communication centers, and transportation hubs. They knew exactly where to strike. Amara's communication device buzzed with 100 messages. Officers seeking orders, politicians demanding explanations, foreign leaders offering prayers and condolences. She ignored them all except one. It was from her daughter Zara, a single line of text. We are safe. Kofi is with me. Win this war, mother. Amara closed her eyes for 3 seconds. She allowed herself that much time to feel the fear, the grief, the rage. Then she opened her eyes and became the general her world needed her to be. United Defense Command was buried deep beneath a mountain range, protected by layers of rock and advanced shielding. When Amara arrived, she found organized chaos. Officers ran between stations, screens displayed damage reports, and communications officers struggled to reestablish contact with surviving military units. General Marcus Webb, her second in command, met her at the entrance. His face was gray with shock. 3 cities gone, he said. Lagos, Mumbai, and Sao Paulo. Casualty estimates are. He stopped. He could not say the number. I saw Lagos burn, Amara replied. Her voice was steady. I was there when the hospital fell. My grandson watched it happen. Webb stared at her. General, I am so sorry. Save your sorrow for after we win. She walked past him toward the command center. Brief me on our response capabilities. The situation was grim. Earth's public military forces had been designed for peacekeeping and disaster response, not full-scale alien invasion. The Kavar had achieved complete surprise. Their technology was superior. Their numbers were overwhelming, but Amara knew something the HFY did not. Earth's public military was not humanity's true defense. Activate protocol. Sleeping giant, she ordered. Webb's eyes widened. General, that protocol requires authorization from the World Council. The World Council building was in Mumbai. Amara turned to face him. I am the highest-ranking military officer. Confirmed alive. I am authorizing it. Now activate the protocol, or I will find someone who will. Webb nodded slowly. He walked to a secure terminal and entered a series of codes that had been created 30 years ago and never used. Deep beneath the ice of Europa, hidden in the asteroids of the belt, and buried under the mountains of a dozen continents, lights began to turn on. Humanity's secret had been well kept since the moment of first contact, when humanity realized that the galaxy was full of predators and they were very small prey. Certain governments had begun preparing. Publicly, they built a modest defensive force and spoke of peaceful cooperation. Privately, they constructed something else entirely. Shipyards hidden beneath frozen moons produced warships that never appeared on any official record. Research facilities developed weapons that officially did not exist. Training programs prepared soldiers for a war that everyone hoped would never come. For 30 years, humanity had smiled at the galaxy and hidden its teeth. Now those teeth would bite. Across the solar system, hidden doors began to open. Ships launched from places that Cathar had never thought to scan. Weapons platforms powered up on supposedly barren asteroids. Fighter squadrons rose from underground hangars on Mars. Admiral Vreeth was the first to notice something was wrong. Divine Conqueror, he reported to Emperor Zorath. We are detecting anomalies, explained Zorath. Demanded. Additional human vessels are appearing throughout the system. Their signatures suggest military-grade warships, but our intelligence indicated the humans possessed only 47 combat-capable vessels. We have now counted over 300, and more are emerging. Zorath leaned forward on his throne. For the first time in many years, he felt something unfamiliar. It took him a moment to recognize the emotion. It was Concern on Earth. General Okonkwo watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The hidden fleet was assembling. It was not enough to defeat the HFY armada in direct combat, but it was enough to make them bleed. Open a communication channel to the HFY flagship, she ordered. Her communications officer hesitated. General, what should I say? Nothing. I will deliver the message myself. The channel opened. Amara Okonkwo stood straight, her gray uniform still dusty from the school where she had shielded her grandson. She looked directly into the camera, knowing that billions of Cathar would see her face. I am General Amara Okonkwo of the United Earth Defense Forces, she said. Her voice was calm, measured, and cold as deep space. 3 hours ago, your empire attacked my world without warning or provocation. You destroyed 3 of our cities. You killed millions of our people. You did this because you believed us weak. Because you believed we would surrender. She paused, letting the words hang in the void between stars. You have made a terrible mistake on the Keithvar flagship. Admiral Vreketh watched the human general with growing unease. There was something in her eyes that he recognized. He had seen it in the eyes of cornered predators on a 100 worlds. It was the look of a creature that had stopped running and started hunting. This is not a threat, General Okonkwo continued. This is not a warning. This is a promise. You struck Earth first. You drew blood from a species that wanted nothing but peace, and now you will learn why every other species in this galaxy told you to leave us alone. She stepped closer to the camera. Behind her tactical displays showed the human fleet growing larger by the minute. Now, we are coming for you. The transmission ended. Emperor Zalreth stared at the blank screen for a long moment. Then he began to laugh. The court joined him, their hissing laughter filling the throne room like steam from a volcanic vent. Brave words from a dying species. The emperor declared, continue the invasion. Show these humans what happens to those who threaten the Kathobar Empire. But Admiral Vreketh did not laugh. He was studying the tactical data, watching the human fleet continue to grow, and in the cold calculations of war, he was beginning to see something that his emperor could not. The humans had been preparing for this. They had been preparing for 30 years, and they were very, very angry. In her command center, General Okonkwo allowed herself one final moment of emotion. She looked at the list of cities destroyed, the preliminary casualty figures, the faces of the dead scrolling across a memorial screen that someone had already created. Then she picked up her communicator and spoke 3 words that would change the history of the galaxy. Begin the counterattack. Emperor Zalrith the Conqueror sat upon a throne made from the bones of defeated kings. It was an ancient tradition among the Kthvar, stretching back 10,000 years to the tribal wars that had forged their species into the galaxy's greatest predators. Every ruler added to the throne. Zalrith himself had contributed 17 skulls from 17 worlds. He intended to add an 18th very soon. A human skull would look quite distinctive among the others. Play it again, he commanded. The recording of General Okonkwo's message filled the throne room once more. Her dark eyes stared out at the assembled court. Her voice echoed off walls decorated with the flags of conquered civilizations. You struck Earth first, now we are coming for you. The court erupted in Laughter for the 5th time. Lord Kraveth, the Emperor's chief advisor, slapped his tail against the marble floor in amusement. Does she truly believe her little speech will frighten us? The HFY have crushed a 100 species that spoke with such bravery. 147 Zoreth corrected. I have kept careful count. Forgive me, divine conqueror. 147 species that believe themselves special. 147 species that now serve the Empire in chains or lie extinct in their graves. Kareth's eyes gleamed with cruel pleasure. The humans will be 148. Admiral Reth stood silent at the edge of the gathering. He had not laughed at the human general's message. He had been too busy studying the tactical reports flowing in from the Sol system, and what he saw troubled him deeply. Divine conqueror, he said carefully, I must report complications. The laughter died. Zalrith turned his massive head toward his admiral. Golden eyes narrowing, explained the human counterattack has begun. Their hidden fleet is more substantial than anticipated. Our forces have lost 18 vessels in the past 3 hours. 18 vessels. Lord Kraveth waved a clawed hand dismissively. We have thousands. The humans are merely delaying the inevitable. That is not all. Admiral Rekith stepped forward, activating a holographic display. The human fighting style is unlike anything we have encountered. They do not follow standard fleet engagement protocols. They use ambush tactics, electronic warfare, and small team infiltration strikes. 3 of our capital ships were disabled by human soldiers who boarded them through maintenance ports. Emperor Zalreth leaned forward. Maintenance ports? Yes, divine conqueror. Ports designed for repair drones, barely large enough for a Cathvar child to crawl through, yet human soldiers squeezed through these spaces, reached the engine rooms, and sabotaged the vessels from within. Rekth paused. They then fought their way back out through armed security teams. The throne room fell silent. How many soldiers performed these attacks? Zalrith asked. 12 per ship. 36 humans disabled 3 capital ships that each carried a crew of 4,000. For the first time no one laughed. Zalrith rose from his throne. He was enormous, even by KTHVAR standards, standing 12 feet tall with scales the color of dried blood. He had personally killed over 100 enemies in combat. He feared nothing in the galaxy, but he respected competence, and what Rekth described was deeply competent. What do we know about these humans? He demanded. Their history, their nature, their weaknesses. Lord Kraveth activated another display. They are young species, divine conqueror. Barely 300 years of spaceflight. Their home world is classified as a Category 4 Death World. Death World. Zalreth repeated. A planet with extreme environmental challenges, high gravity, dangerous predators, toxic flora, unstable climate. Such worlds typically produce hardy life forms. Kareth shrugged his massive shoulders. But they humans appeared soft when we observed them. They spent their time pursuing art, science, and philosophy rather than conquest. We assumed their planet had weakened them. Perhaps, Beckett said quietly. We assumed wrong. 3,000 light years away, the ancient Vorith watched the conflict unfold. The Vorith were the oldest spacefaring species in the known galaxy. They had existed for over 2 million years, witnessing the rise and fall of thousands of civilizations. They no longer built empires or fought wars. They simply observed, recorded, and occasionally offered warnings to those wise enough to listen. Elder Crystalline, the Vorith representative to the Galactic Council, had sent such a warning to the Kithvar Emperor 3 days before the attack on Earth. You should not have woken them. Zorath had ignored it. Every conqueror ignored the Vorath, dismissing them as ancient relics with no understanding of modern warfare. But the Vorath remembered things that no other species could recall. They remembered the pattern that repeated itself across millions of years of galactic history. Every few hundred years, a new species would emerge from a death world. They would be small, fragile, and easily dismissed. The great empires of the time would bully them, threaten them, and occasionally attack them, and then the death world species would wake up. Vorith had seen this pattern 17 times. 17 species had emerged from the crucible of impossible worlds, hardened by constant struggle against an environment that tried to kill them every day of their lives. 17 species had been pushed too far by arrogant empires. 15 of those 17 had become conquerors themselves, building empires that dwarfed anything the galaxy had seen before. The other 2 had become something worse. They had become judges. Elder Crystalline watched the human fleet engage the HFY forces and felt something that the Vorith rarely experienced anymore: curiosity. Which type would the humans become on the trading world of Meladar? Ambassador Seer was packing his belongings. The Meladari were a peaceful species, dedicated to commerce and cultural exchange. They had no military forces, relying instead on their usefulness to all sides to guarantee their safety. They had maintained embassies on every major world for thousands of years, including the HFY home world. Now Sir was leaving. His assistant, a young Meladari named Vila, watched him with confusion. Ambassador, surely this is premature. The humans are a small species with a single system. The HFY empire spans 200 worlds. The outcome is not in doubt. Sir paused in his packing. He was old by Meladari standards, nearly 400 years, and he had seen many conflicts, but none had concerned him as much as this one. Bella, do you know what makes a species dangerous? Military strength, technological advancement. Numbers? No. Siri closed his travel case. What makes a species truly dangerous is the combination of 3 traits. First, the ability to endure suffering. Second, the ability to learn from mistakes. Third, the willingness to pay any price to protect what they love. And the humans possess these traits. The humans evolved on a world that tried to kill them constantly for 3 million years. They survived ice ages, plagues, predators, and each other. They learned to use tools, build shelters, and work together. Sereth moved toward the door, and they loved their children with an intensity that borders on insanity. Vila followed him. What does that mean for this war? It means the Cathvar have not started a conquest. Siri stopped at the doorway and looked back at the embassy he had served in for 50 years. They have started a blood feud with a species that never forgets and never forgives, and the HFY attacked their children. He walked out without another word. In the throne room of the HFY home world, Emperor Zalreth received an updated casualty report. 47 ships lost, 8,000 soldiers dead. The invasion of Earth had been halted at the edge of the inner system. Human forces were not just defending, they were counterattacking with a ferocity that stunned Kethvar. Commanders who had never faced real resistance. This changes nothing, Zoreth declared. Reinforce Admiral Reth, send the second and third battle fleets to the Sol system, crush these humans completely. Divine Conqueror. Brackett's image appeared on the communication screen. There is something else you should see. The image shifted to a recording from a KEVAR scout ship. It showed the space behind Jupiter, the massive gas giant that dominated the outer reaches of the human system. Something was emerging from behind the planet. Ships, hundreds of them. Human warships of a design the Kavar had never seen, bristling with weapons that their sensors could not fully identify. They moved with perfect coordination, forming into battle groups that flowed around the gas giant like a tide of steel and fire. Our intelligence suggested the humans had 47 combat vessels, Freck said. We have now confirmed over 600 in their main fleet, with more appearing from hidden bases throughout their system. Emperor Zalreth stared at the display. For 30 years the humans had smiled at the galaxy. They had talked of peace and cooperation. They had built modest defensive forces and focused on exploration and science. They had seemed harmless, and for 30 years they had been building this divine conqueror. Lord Kraveth spoke carefully. Perhaps we should consider negotiation. The humans might accept reparations in exchange. For no, Zoreth's voice was flat and hard. The KTHVAR do not negotiate with inferior species. We do not retreat. We do not show weakness. He turned to face his court. Send every available ship to the Sol system. If the humans want war, we will give them annihilation. The court bowed, though Rekith noticed that several nobles no longer seemed quite so confident. As the orders went out and the Empire mobilized for total war, a single message arrived at the KTHVAR communication center. It was broadcast on all frequencies in all languages. Impossible to ignore. General Amara Akinquo appeared on screens across the Empire. She stood on the bridge of a human warship, surrounded by officers who worked with calm efficiency. Behind her, through the viewport, the human fleet filled the stars like a forest of thorns. People of the KTHVAR Empire, she said, your leaders have started a war. They cannot win. They attacked my world. Without warning, they murdered millions of innocent people, including children, in their schools and patients in their hospitals. Her voice remained steady, but something cold burned in her eyes. I am not here to threaten you. I am here to make you understand. We did not want this war. We did not seek conflict with your empire, but you struck Earth first. You drew first blood, and now you will learn what humanity becomes when our home is threatened. She stepped closer to the camera. We are coming for you, not for your people, not for your worlds. We are coming for your emperor, your generals, and everyone who ordered or celebrated this attack. We will not stop until they answer for what they have done. She paused, letting the words settle across the watching empire. You should not have woken us. Transmission ended in his throne room. Emperor Zalrith crushed the armrest of his ancient throne in his grip. Fragments of bone from a 100 conquered kings fell to the floor. Find that woman, he snarled, and bring her to me. In chains. He did not yet understand that the chains would be coming for him. General Amara Akinquo stood on the bridge of the UES Remembrance and watched her fleet tear through the HFY invasion force. The battle for the Sol system had entered its second week. What the HFY had expected to be a simple conquest had become a nightmare. Human tactics were unlike anything their commanders had ever faced. Instead of the formal fleet engagements that dominated galactic warfare, the humans fought like wolves. They struck from ambush, they disappeared into asteroid fields and emerged behind enemy lines. They boarded HFY ships through impossibly small openings and fought hand-to-hand in corridors designed for species twice their size, and they never ever gave up. Admiral Reketh's flagship is withdrawing, Commander Chen reported. From the tactical station, their formation is collapsing. Amara nodded. She had been awake for 36 hours, but her mind remained sharp. Coffee and determination kept her functional. The faces of the dead kept her motivated. Every morning since the attack, she had read the list of casualties, the names scrolled across her personal display for 17 minutes, 17 minutes of names, mothers and fathers, children and grandparents, scientists and artists and workers and dreamers, all gone in a flash of Kether plasma fire. She would read that list every morning until this war was over. Signal all ships, she ordered. Pursuit. Formation. No Cathmar vessel leaves this system. The human fleet moved as one. 600 warships, plus another 300 support vessels, swept across the solar system. Like a wave of steel, the Kithvar, who had arrived expecting easy prey, found themselves hunted instead. Admiral Reketh had lost 2/3 of his invasion fleet. The remainder was fleeing toward the outer system, desperately trying to reach jump distance so they could escape back to Cathvar space. Human ships harassed them every step of the way, picking off stragglers and damaged vessels. General Chen spoke again, his voice suddenly sharp. Long-range sensors are detecting an energy buildup in the Kvar formation. Amara turned to her display. The readings made her blood run cold. That is a Devastator-class weapon, said Admiral Yuki Tanaka, commander of the Second Fleet, speaking through the communication link. Planet killer technology. If they fire that at Earth, they would have to drop out of their retreat formation to aim it. Amara's mind raced through possibilities. They would be vulnerable for approximately 3 minutes during the targeting sequence. 3 minutes is not enough time to destroy a capital ship. Tanaka replied, not even with our full firepower, then we do not destroy it. Amara made her decision in an instant. We disable it, Commander Chen signaled. The Wolfpack. Chen's fingers flew across his console. Wolfpack responding. General, Captain Kowalski is requesting target coordinates. Send them everything we have on that weapon. Tell her we need heroes on the attack. Cruiser Silent Hunter, Captain Maria. Kowalski received the orders and immediately understood what they meant. The Wolfpack was humanity's most elite strike force, 50 small, vast ships, crewed by volunteers who had trained for exactly this kind of mission. They were designed to get into places no ship should be able to reach and do things no sane commander would order. Maria had lost her husband in the initial attack. On Earth, he had been a nurse at a hospital in Lagos. Now she commanded suicide mission to save the planet he had loved. All Wolfpack ships she broadcast to her squadron. You have the coordinates. You know what that weapon We'll do if it reaches Earth. We are going to stop it, Captain her first. Officer Lieutenant Park spoke quietly. Beside her, the probability of survival for this mission is less than 3%. No, Maria gripped the arms of her command chair, set intercept course. Maximum speed, 50 ships broke away from the human fleet and accelerated toward the Cathvar formation. They were small, enough to slip through gaps in the enemy's defensive fire, fast enough to reach their target before the weapon could complete its targeting sequence. But not all of them would make it. General Okonkwo watched the Wolfpack's progress on her display. Each ship was a dot of light racing toward the HFY weapon platform. One by one the dots began to vanish. Wolfpack 7 is down, Chen reported. His voice was professionally steady, but his hands shook slightly. Wolfpack 12 is down. Wolfpack 3 is down. Amara did not look away. She owed these men and women that much. She would witness every sacrifice. 20 ships reached the weapon platform. They swarmed around the massive Cathvar vessel like hornets attacking a bear. Plasma fire erupted in all directions. Explosions blossomed in the void. Weapon platform's targeting system is damaged, Chen reported. They cannot fire. Wolfpack 1, Omar asked. Chen was silent for a moment, then he spoke quietly. Wolfpack 1 is no longer responding, General. Captain Kowalski's ship was among those that struck the platform directly. It appears she piloted her vessel into the weapon's primary focusing array. Amara closed her eyes. Maria Kowalski, 43 years old, wife of Dr. James Kowalski, deceased, mother of 2 daughters who were now orphans. She added the name to her list. How many Wolfpack ships survived? She asked. 7, General. They are returning to the fleet now. 7 survivors out of 50. 43 men and women had given their lives to save Earth from destruction. It was a price that Amara would carry for the rest of her days. But Earth was safe for now. The remaining Cathar ships finally reached jump distance and vanished into faster than light travel, fleeing back toward their empire. The invasion of Earth was over. It had taken 14 days and cost humanity nearly 4 million lives between the initial attack and the subsequent battles, but the Cathar had lost over 60% of their invasion force. They had learned that humanity was not the easy prey they had expected, and now it was humanity's turn to attack. General Okonkwo called a meeting of her fleet commanders. 11 admirals and generals gathered in their remembrances conference room, either in person or via holographic link. They represented the full military leadership of the human species. The KTHVAR will not stop, Amara began. Without preamble, they have lost this battle, but their empire spans 200 worlds. They will rebuild their fleet and return unless we ensure they cannot. Admiral Tanaka leaned forward. What are you proposing, General? We take the war to them. Amara activated a holographic star map. The Cathar Empire glowed red across a vast section of the galaxy. We have spent 30 years preparing for this moment. Our hidden fleet was designed not just for defense, but for offensive operations. We have the ships, we have the weapons, we have the personnel. We also have the anger, said General James O'Brien, commander of the ground forces. His Irish accent was thick with emotion. My soldiers are ready to make the Keith Farfar pay for every city they burn. That anger is why I called this meeting. Amara looked at each commander in turn. I will not lead a campaign of revenge. I will not become the monster that they HFY want us to be. The room fell silent. We are going to invade the HFY empire, she continued. We are going to defeat their military, remove their leadership, and ensure they can never threaten Earth again, but we will do so with honor. We will not attack civilian targets. We will not murder prisoners. We will not commit genocide. Even though they killed millions of our people, some would say we have earned the right to revenge. Admiral Cheney, commander of the Third Fleet, spoke carefully, and some would be wrong. Amara's voice was iron. We will win this war, but when it is over, I want humanity to be able to look at itself in the mirror. I want my grandson to grow up proud of what we did, not ashamed of how we did it. The HFY attacked us because they saw us as animals. We would defeat them by proving we are something more. She pulled up navigation coordinates on the display. We launch in 72 hours. During that time, repair what can be repaired and resupply from the hidden depots. When we jump to Kethvar space, we go as liberators, not conquerors. The commander saluted and began to disperse. Admiral Tanaka remained behind. Amara, she said quietly, using the general's first name. For the first time in years, what you said about not wanting revenge, did you mean it? Amara was silent for a long moment. She thought about her grandson, huddled under a school desk while the sky burned. She thought about the hospital where he was born, reduced to ashes in seconds. She thought about Maria Kowalski, who would never see her daughters grow up. I want revenge more than I have ever wanted anything in my life, she finally admitted. I want to watch the Cathar home world burn. I want to hear Emperor Zalrith scream as everything he built collapses around him. She turned to face Tanaka, but wanting something and doing it are different things. If we become monsters to defeat monsters, then the Cathar have won. Even in their defeat, we are better than that. We have to be better than that. Tanaka nodded slowly. Then I will follow you whatever comes. What comes, Amara said, is the hardest war humanity has ever fought, not because the Cathar are strong, but because we will have to remain good while fighting evil. That is the true test. She looked out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Cathar Empire waited. 200 worlds of slave labor and tyranny, ruled by an emperor who thought nothing of destroying cities full of children. Plot a course for the HFY home world, she ordered. They wanted a war. Now they will have one, but it will end on our terms, not theirs. The human fleet began its preparations. Ships that had been hidden for 30 years were finally seeing their true purpose. Soldiers who had trained in secret for a conflict they hoped would never come were now ready to fight. And at the head of this armada stood a grandmother who had watched her city burn and chosen to respond with justice instead of vengeance. The wolves were awake and they were coming. The first world they liberated was called THRL Prime. General Okonkwo had chosen it deliberately. The Thrill were an insectoid species that the Keith had enslaved 3 centuries ago. They worked in the Empire's mining operations, their natural strength and resilience making them perfect for extracting ore in conditions that would kill most other species. The KEVAR treated them as tools, nothing more. The human fleet dropped out of faster than light travel at the edge of the system. Cathar defense stations immediately began broadcasting warnings and threats. Within hours, a HFY battle group arrived to drive away the invaders. They were outnumbered 3-1. It did not help. Human ships moved through the HFY formation like water through fingers. The same tactics that had won the battle for Earth proved equally effective here. Small strike teams disabled capital ships from within. Electronic warfare disrupted HFY communications. Precision strikes eliminated command vessels while leaving troop transports untouched. Within 6 hours, the HFY military presence in the thrill system had ceased to exist. General Okonkwo personally led the ground operation. Her shuttle landed at the largest mining complex on the planet, where over 100,000 Threll workers lived in conditions that shocked even veterans of human history's worst labor abuses. The Threll were massive creatures standing 8 ft tall with 6 limbs and hardened exoskeletons, but centuries of slavery had broken something in them. They cowered when the human soldiers approached, expecting new masters to replace the old. Amara walked through the mining camp until she found what she was looking for. In the administrative center, a Thrill female was chained to a processing station. She was larger than the others, her carapace marked with the patterns that indicated royal lineage. Queen Crystal had once ruled the Thrill. Now she was a slave, forced to catalog the suffering of her own people. Amara knelt before the chained queen and spoke gently. Your Majesty, I am General Amara Okonkwo of humanity. We have come to set your people free. Crystal stared at her with compound eyes that had seen 300 years of horror. Free? There is no freedom. The HFY are eternal. They cannot be defeated. We defeated them at our home world. We defeated them here. We will defeat them everywhere. Amara reached out and touched the chains that bound the queen. But I am not here to make promises about the future. I am here to remove these chains right now in the present. She nodded to the soldier beside her. With a quick burst of plasma, the chains fell away. Queen Crystal stood for the first time in decades. Her legs trembled, weakened by years of confinement. But she stood, and as she stood, she began to weep, her tears like drops of amber falling to the stone floor. Why? She asked. Why would you do this? You do not know us. You owe us nothing. Cathar attacked my world because they believe the strong have the right to crush the weak. Amara helped steady the queen. We are here to prove them wrong, not by becoming conquerors ourselves, but by setting free everyone they have conquered. Word spread quickly. The humans were not new masters. The humans were liberators. Within days, other species began to reach out through secret channels. The Melodari, who had fled the Cathar home world, offered their trading networks as supply lines. The Vesh, a crystalline species renowned for their technology, offered shield generators that could protect human ships from KTH bore weapons, species that had hidden from the Empire for centuries, suddenly emerged, offering whatever help they could provide. The coalition grew. General Okonkwo refused every offer that came with conditions attached. She asked nothing of the liberated peoples except that they not attack civilians or commit atrocities. Some species wanted revenge against Cathar settlements. She denied them. We are not here to create new injustice, she told a gathering of allied commanders. We are here to end injustice. Any species that cannot accept that is welcome to leave, but they will not commit massacres in the Name of freedom, some left, most stayed. They had never met a conqueror who limited their own power. They did not fully understand the humans, but they recognized something genuine in their restraint. The march continued. World after world fell to the coalition forces. The HFY military, designed for conquest rather than defense, struggled to adapt. They had never faced an enemy that freed their slaves instead of taking them. They had never encountered a species that won battles and then immediately began rebuilding the infrastructure they had destroyed. Human engineers repaired water systems. Human doctors treated the sick. Regardless of species, human soldiers shared their food with children of races they had never seen before. Emperor Zoltra watched his empire crumble and could not understand why. They are weak. He snarled at his advisors. They waste resources helping species that cannot help them. They show mercy to enemies who would show them none. Why are they winning? Lord Krabbeth no longer laughed at human broadcasts. Divine conqueror. Perhaps their weakness is their strength. The species they liberate fight alongside them. They have gained allies faster than we can mobilize. Reinforcements, allies. Zorath spat the word like poison. We do not need allies. We have slaves. Order the garrison commanders to execute all non-Kethvar workers in their territories. If the humans want to save them, let them try to save corpses. The order went out across the empire. HFY soldiers prepared to murder billions of enslaved workers. General Okonkwo received intelligence about the order within hours. Her response was immediate and absolute. All ships maximum speed to the nearest threatened world. We split the fleet if necessary. No one dies because we were too slow. The coalition fleet scattered like seeds in a storm, racing toward dozens of worlds. Simultaneously, they arrived at some in time. They arrived at others too late. On the world of R, human soldiers burst into an execution facility moments before the killing began. They saved over 2 million Vesh workers. On the moon of Kelex, they arrived to find the bodies of 800,000 Melodari murdered by Kethvar guards who had followed their orders with terrible efficiency. Amara walked through the killing fields of Kelex. The Melodari had been a peaceful species, traders and artists who had harmed no one. They lay in mass graves, their beautiful silver skin dulled by death. Admiral Tanaka found her standing at the edge of the largest grave, staring down at the bodies. General, we have confirmed 12 more atrocities across the empire. The Kethvar are murdering their own workforce rather than let us free them. I know. Amara's voice was hollow. This is my fault. I thought I hoped that if we showed mercy, they would respond in kind. I was wrong. This is not your fault. The KTHVAR are responsible for their own evil, but I provoked it. Every world we liberate, they murder another to spite us. She finally looked at Tanaka. How do we fight this? How do we defeat an enemy who would rather destroy everything than lose it? It was Queen Crystal X who answered. The Thrill Monarch had insisted on joining the fleet, bringing a contingent of her warriors to fight alongside the humans. She approached General Okonkwo with the careful dignity of a queen who had known both power and slavery. You defeat them by continuing to be what they cannot understand. Crystal said. They murder their slaves because they believe you will respond with equal brutality. They want you to become like them. If you do, they win. Even in defeat, but people are dying. Because of my mercy, people were dying. Long before you came, crystals. Compound eyes reflected the graves. Below, my people have died for 300 years. Under Kethar rule, the difference is that now there is hope, now there is someone fighting for us that is worth more than you know. Amara looked back at the graves. She thought about her grandson safe on Earth because people had died to protect him. She thought about Maria Kowalski, who had given her life to stop a planet killer. She thought about the long list of names she read every morning. Then we continue. She said finally, we do not let their evil change who we are. We mourn the dead and we fight harder for the living. She turned to face the assembled officers and allied commanders. Broadcast a message to the HFY people, not their emperor, not their military, the common people who have no say in this war. The recording began. Amara spoke directly to the camera, her voice calm but filled with emotion. People of the Kethvar Empire, your emperor has ordered the murder of billions of workers rather than allow them to be free. He has commanded your soldiers to slaughter innocents whose only crime was serving your empire faithfully. She paused, collecting herself. We did not come here for revenge. We did not come here to replace your masters with ourselves. We came because your emperor attacked our home, killed our children, and forced us to fight. We would have been happy to never meet you at all, but now we have met, and we have seen what your empire truly is. Not strength but cruelty, not power but fear. Your emperor is so afraid of hope that he destroys anything that might feel it. She stepped closer to the camera. We are coming to your home world. When we arrive, we will not massacre your civilians as you massacred ours. We will not enslave your children as you enslaved the thrill. We will remove your emperor and his generals from power, and we will give you the chance to become something better. You have a choice now. You can fight for an emperor who would murder billions to preserve his pride, or you can wait for us to arrive and choose a different future. She ended the message with words that would echo across the galaxy for generations. We are humanity. We came from a world that tried to kill us every day. We survived because we learned to work together, to hope together, to love together. Your emperor cannot defeat that. No tyrant ever has. We are coming, and when we arrive, things will change. The message went out on every channel across the KTHVAR Empire. Soldiers and citizens heard the human generals' words. Some dismissed them as propaganda. Others began to wonder if perhaps there was another way. And in his throne room, Emperor Zalreth ordered every ship in the empire to defend the home world. The final battle was coming. The KTHVAR home world burned red beneath the stars. General Amara Akinquo stood on the bridge of the UES Remembrance and watched the largest space battle galactic history unfold before her eyes. The coalition fleet, now numbering over 2,000 ships from a dozen species, faced the combined might of the KTHVAR Empire. 3,000 warships defended the planet where the KTHVAR had first evolved, where their empire had been born, where Emperor Zalreth waited on his throne of bones. All ships reporting ready. Admiral Tanaka announced the thrill. Assault wings are in position. Vest shield generators are at full power. Melodari intelligence confirms the enemy formation. Amara nodded. This was the moment. Everything had led to 6 months of Fighting across 200 worlds, millions. Dead on both sides, countless species. Freed from centuries of slavery, and now. The end, signal all ships, she ordered. Begin the attack, the coalition fleets. Surged forward, human vessels led the charge, their crews hardened by months of constant combat. THRL warriors flew alongside them, finally able to fight against the masters who had enslaved them. Vest ships provided protective shields that absorbed Cathar. Weapons fire, Melodari craft coordinated communications across the entire fleet. It was not just a human war anymore. It was a galactic uprising. The HFY fought with desperate fury. They knew what defeat would mean. For 10,000 years they had been conquerors. Now they faced conquest themselves. Every ship fought to the death. Every crew refused surrender, but the coalition had something that Cathar did not understand. They fought together not because they were forced to, but because they chose to. Each species brought its own strengths. Each crew trusted the others to hold their position. It was a unity that could not be created through slavery. The KTHVAR lines began to break. Admiral Vreketh had been replaced twice since the war began. His successors had fared no better. Now the third admiral, a young officer named Thruch, watched his fleet being systematically destroyed and made a decision. All ships fall back to orbital defense positions. Protect the palace at all costs. The Cathar retreated, forming a tight ring around their home world. They had lost over half their fleet, but what remained was still formidable. Breaking through would cost the coalition dearly. Amara studied the tactical display. Her advisors were already calculating casualty projections. The numbers were grim. We can bombard them from range, Admiral Chen suggested. Reduce their orbital defenses with long-range weapons, then move in for the final assault. That bombardment would last for weeks, Amamar replied. Every day we wait, more of the enslaved die in the remaining occupied territories. We do not have the luxury of time. Then what do you suggest? Amara looked at the planet below. Somewhere down there, Emperor Zorath waited in his palace. The monster who had ordered the attack on Earth, the tyrant who had murdered billions of slaves rather than free them. She could destroy him from orbit. A single coordinated strike could crack the planet's crust and end the war in an instant. Her officers had suggested it. Some of her allies had demanded it. General O'Brien, she called. Are your ground forces ready? The Irish general appeared on the screen. His face was grim but determined, ready and willing. Ma'am, though I should warn you, a ground assault on a Cathvar palace is essentially a suicide mission, not suicide sacrifice. Amber stood from her command chair. I will lead it personally. The bridge fell silent. Admiral Tanaka stepped forward. General, with respect, that is insane. You are the commander of this entire campaign. If you die, if I die, you take command and finish the job. Amara met her old friend's eyes. I will not glass a planet full of civilians. I will not murder billions of Cathar who had no say in their emperor's crimes, if that means risking my own life to remove Zalreth surgically, then so be it. Why? Tanaka asked. After everything they have done, after Logos and Mumbai and Salo, after Kelax, why do you still care about their civilians? Amara was quiet for a moment, then she spoke. Because my grandson asked me once what I did in the War, when that day comes, I want to tell him that I fought the guilty and protected the innocent. I want him to be proud of what we did here, not ashamed of how we did it. She turned to face the full bridge crew. We did not come here to become monsters. We came here to stop them. If we destroy this world, we prove that the HFY were right about us all along. If we take the hard road, the dangerous road, and remove the emperor without genocide, we prove them wrong. She looked at each face in turn. I need volunteers for the ground assault. No one has ordered, but if you believe in what we have been fighting for, I am asking you to stand with me one more time. Every hand on the bridge rose. The assault shuttle descended through a sky filled with fire. General Okonkwo sat in the lead craft, surrounded by the best soldiers humanity and its allies had to offer. Human Special Forces, Thrill, Royal Guards, Vehicari, volunteers who had lost family on Kelax and demanded the right to see the end. The palace of Emperor Zalreth rose from the center of the capital city like a monument to cruelty. It was built from black stone and decorated with the trophies of 100 conquered worlds. The throne room at its heart had witnessed 10,000 years of tyranny. Today, that tyranny would end. The landing was brutal. Keithvar defenders fought with the fury of cornered animals, but they, coalition soldiers, had fought their way across an empire. They knew how to face fear and keep moving forward. Amara led from the front. She was 62 years old and her body ached from months of campaign stress, but she kept moving, kept fighting, kept advancing through corridors slick with blood and smoke. They lost soldiers with every step. Colonel Hassan, who had been with her since the beginning, fell to a plasma bolt. Lieutenant Vex of the Threll died protecting a wounded human private. Dr. Seer, the old Melodari ambassador who had insisted on joining the assault, was killed by falling debris. Amara added each name to the list she carried in her heart. Finally they reached the throne room. Emperor Zalrath sat upon his throne of bones, surrounded by his personal guard. He was enormous, even by KTHVAR standards. His scales scarred by centuries of combat. In his clawed hand he held a small device. So, you have come, he said. His voice echoed through the ancient chamber. The human general who thinks she can judge an empire. Amara stepped forward, her weapon raised. Emperor Zalreth, you are under arrest for crimes against sentient beings, the murder of millions on Earth, the massacre of billions of slaves across your empire, the systematic destruction of countless species. Zoreth laughed. It was a cold, hollow sound. Arrest? You think this ends with arrest? He lifted the device in his hand. Beneath this palace is a weapon that can ignite the planet's core. One press of this trigger and everything dies. Your fleet, my people, all of it gone. The soldiers around Amara tensed, but she remained calm. Why would you do that? You would murder your own people. I would deny you victory. Solrath's eyes burned with ancient hate. The KTHVAR do not surrender. We do not admit defeat. If we cannot rule this galaxy, then we will burn it rather than see it in the hands of insects like you. That is not strength, Amara said quietly. That is fear. You are so afraid of losing power that you would kill everyone, including yourself, rather than face a world where you are not in control. You call it fear, I call it legacy. Zoreth's claw tightened on the device. What will you do, human? Kill me? I press the trigger the moment I die. Capture me. I press the trigger the moment you move, you have no options. Amara lowered her weapon. The soldiers around her gasped. Zoreth's eyes narrowed in confusion. What are you doing? I am talking to you. Amara stepped closer, her hands empty. Not as a general to an emperor, not as a conqueror to a defeated tyrant, just as one person to another. I have nothing to say to you. Then listen. She stopped a few feet from the throne. I have seen your empire. I have walked through your slave camps and your execution fields. I have watched your soldiers murder children because they were ordered to. She met his eyes. And I have also seen your people, ordinary Kethvar who never asked for this war, parents who love their children, young soldiers who follow orders because they do not know any other way. They are not evil, they are just trapped in a system you build. They are mine to command. No, they are not. Amar's voice was steady. You do not own people. You never did. That is the lie at the heart of everything you built. The slaves you captured, the worlds you conquered, the species you destroyed, none of them were yours. You just took them because you had the power. And you convinced yourself that power meant right. Zoreth's grip on the device trembled slightly. If you press that trigger, Amara continued, you will kill billions of your own people. The children playing in the streets outside. The families hiding in their homes, hoping the war will end. The young mothers wondering if their babies will see tomorrow. She took another step closer. Is that the legacy you want? Not Zulrah the conqueror, but Zalreth the destroyer of his own people. Is that how you want to be remembered for the rest of time? The throne room was silent. Solreth stared at the human woman who had invaded his world, fought through his palace, and now stood before him. With empty hands and steady eyes, he had killed thousands of enemies in personal combat. He had crushed rebellions and destroyed civilizations, but he had never faced someone who was not afraid of him. You could not understand, he said finally. You are young. Your species is young. You have not seen what I have seen, ruled what I have ruled. The galaxy is cruel. The weak are consumed by the strong. It has always been so. It does not have to be. Amara held out her hand. Put down the device. Let this end without more death. I cannot promise you freedom, but I can promise you something that you never gave your victims: a fair trial. Chance to speak, justice, not revenge. For a long moment, Zalreth was silent. His claw remained on the trigger. Fate of billions hung on his decision. Then one of his guards stepped forward. Enough. The guard was young, barely past maturity by Kethar standards. His scales were still bright with youth, unmarked by the scars of age. He raised his weapon and pointed it at his emperor. I watched you order the execution of my sister's children because they were born on an occupied world. I stayed silent because I believed in the empire. I believed in you. His voice shook. But I will not let you murder everyone I have left to save your pride. Another guard stepped forward, then another. Within moments, half of Zalreth's personal guard had turned their weapons on him. The emperor stared at his soldiers in disbelief. You would betray me after everything I gave you. You gave us war. The young guard said. She offers us something else. I want to see what that looks like. Zirath looked at the device in his hand. He looked at the guards who had served him for decades. He looked at the human general who stood with empty hands and no fear, and slowly, carefully, he set the device down on the arm of his throne. Take him, Amara ordered. The guards moved forward to secure their former emperor. As they led him away in chains, Amara picked up the detonator and carefully deactivated it. The weapon beneath the palace powered down. Billions of lives were saved. War was over. 6 months later, General Amar Akinquo returned to Earth. She walked through the memorial park that had been built where Legos once stood. 3 million names were carved into walls of black marble, each one a life lost in the initial attack. She read them slowly, as she had every morning since the war began. At the end of the wall, a young man waited for her. Kofi was 13 now, tall and serious with his grandmother's eyes. He had survived the war in a shelter, watching broadcasts of the battles that raged across the galaxy. He had seen his grandmother on screens throughout the solar system, the face of humanity's fight for survival. Now she was just his grandmother again, gray and tired and carrying the weight of everything that had happened. You came home, he said. I promised I would. She embraced him, holding tight to the one thing that had kept her going through the darkest moments. I am sorry it took so long. They walked together through the memorial, past the names of the dead and the flowers left by the living. Other people nodded to Amara as they passed. They did not cheer or applaud. They simply acknowledged her with quiet respect. What happens now? Kofi asked. We rebuild. We work with our allies to create something better than what came before. The HFY will have a new government, one that has to answer for the Empire's crimes but also has the chance to change. And the Emperor, he stands trial next month. Representatives from every species his empire harmed will speak, then justice will be done. She paused. Not revenge. Justice. They reached the center of the memorial where a single flame burned in memory of all who had been lost. Amara stopped and stared at the fire. Grandmother, Kofi said quietly, what did you learn from the war? Amara was silent for a long time. She thought about all the battles, all the deaths, all the impossible choices. She thought about Maria Kowalski and her 50 wolves. She thought about Queen Crystal X rising from her chains. She thought about the young Kethvar who had chosen hope over loyalty. I learned that the galaxy expected us to become monsters, she finally said. Every species we met, every enemy we fought, they all believed that humans would eventually show our true nature, that we would conquer and enslave and destroy, just like everyone else. She looked at her grandson. Proving them wrong was the greatest victory we won, not the battles or the treaties or the liberation of a 100 worlds, just showing the galaxy that it was possible to fight without losing your soul. That was what mattered. Kofi nodded slowly, understanding more than a 13-year-old should have to understand. Do you think they believe us now? Amara smiled. It was a tired smile, but genuine. I think they are starting to. And that is enough for now. She took her grandson's hand, and together they walked out of the memorial into the sunlight of a world that had been attacked, had bled, and had survived. Behind them, the flame continued to burn, a promise to the dead and a light for the living.